What's going on, everybody? It's Korr here, and welcome back to another episode of Korr Talks Need for Speed 2021. In the previous two videos, we covered the map and why it needs to be memorable and well done. And in the last video, we talked about the importance of marketing through a little thing I like to call the method of recognition. Well, today we're going to talk about a different part of Need for Speed 2021 that I believe currently, with the sour taste that was left in our mouths by the previous games, is arguably the most important thing that needs to be done well, and that is the polish. Now, you might be thinking to yourself that the polish in the grand scheme of things is not as important as Japan, or, I don't know, more cars, more customization, the RX-8, or the new Supra or Toyota coming back. But no, guys, let me just try to nail some sense into y'all. Polish is the most important thing right now. Why is polish so important? Well, let's just discuss some of the previous examples of Need for Speed games not being polished whatsoever. I think the most obvious example that we can use here is Need for Speed Heat. So first of all, as I'm sure a lot of you know, on PC, the game uses 100% of the CPU constantly, no matter what you're doing. That makes it very difficult to try and, I don't know, change a song on Spotify while you're playing the game because the game soundtrack is kind of crap. Or indeed trying to film videos because I have to press my key combination on Shadowplay about 5 or 6 times on Need for Speed Heat before it actually starts recording. There's also the infamous texture loading bug where the textures in the game take absolute ages to load properly, so they're like low res and look like PlayStation 1 textures. There's, of course, the total lack of controller remapping, which basically means that if you're using manual transmission and you try to shift up by pressing RB on the controller, you actually end up going into the garage if you're nearby, which is fantastic game design, guys. Good job, honestly. Very nicely done there. And then there's the fact that the open world is a bit hit or miss. The DLC was absolute garbage. I mean, I know that has nothing to do with the polish, but the DLC in Need for Speed Heat is heinously bad. Horrible. And I know I'm saying that with burning passion in my voice. That's just the way I talk, but it was really bad, and I'll come back to that in a future video talking about the DLC and the live service and why it's so important to get that right as well. But let's focus on the polish. The drift handling is atrocious. We all know that in Need for Speed Heat. They finally got the grip physics somewhat right, and then they completely took a giant diarrhea all over the drift physics, and it's impossible to drift a car in Need for Speed Heat. I believe I heard something about needing to equip drag tires on your car to drift properly, which is ridiculous. Neatly brings me on to another fact that we have drag-related upgrades in Need for Speed Heat, like drag suspension and drag tires, but there's no drag racing. We even still have the weld racing wheels that were specifically meant for the drag cars in Need for Speed Payback, but we didn't have any drag racing in Need for Speed Heat at all. Then there's, of course, the total lack of multiplayer. Well, there is multiplayer, but there's no PvP, there's no private lobbies, and they never added that post-launch, even though it was promised. And even going back further to Need for Speed Payback, there's the infamous glitch where Jess, the character, is protruding from the car. It looks as though she is sitting on the roof of the car rather than inside of the car. Nobody knows why this happens, but it's happened to tons of people, especially on Reddit. I've seen countless people post that and ask what the hell's going on. Need for Speed Payback had truly awful graphics. It didn't even have a weather cycle at all because of quote-unquote hardware limitations, which is absolute bullshit. The drag cars were forced to go on tracks with corners in them. I remember that. That was ridiculous. There was also the hopping, like where the car splitter would hook on to the sidewalk or indeed any part of the map, and the car would just bounce around like crazy and it could lead to flips. There was the multiplayer Need for Speed Payback where collisions would be off for 10 seconds during the race before the idiots in the Regera start ramming the shit out of you and causing you to lose the race. There's, of course, the aforementioned in the previous video, car balancing, whereby the Porsche 911 RSR is still overpowered after 4 years and 3 full games, rendering pretty much every other car in the game completely useless in multiplayer, and especially Need for Speed Heat because there is no multiplayer to speak of. And then going back to Need for Speed 2015, there was the unpredictable crab walk handling that could send you into a wall at any minute. There was the netcode whereby you're playing multiplayer with your friends. One of them is complaining that you bumped into them when in fact you're about 100 feet or 100 meters behind them. And finally, there was, of course, falling through the map on the PC. And don't even get me started on the traffic cars that would randomly fall into the tunnel through the roof in the speed tunnel drag race. So that was 6 minutes of me listing all the unpolished parts of the past few Need for Speed games. I'm sorry for rambling so much. But the point of all of that was to drive home the point how unpolished the previous games are. As Straight Up Hippo once said, the new Need for Speed games are not full console experiences, and they're not even indie experiences. I know a lot of indie games that are far more polished than any of the new, more recent Need for Speed games. Hot Shot Racing, Horizon Chase Turbo, CarX Drift Online, which I got recently and I'm gonna make videos on soon. It's all a complete mess. Which is why the next Need for Speed game, one of the main priorities when making that game, needs to be the polish. Bugs are fine. Don't get me wrong. Bugs are absolutely fine. Every game ever has had bugs and it will probably continue to have bugs. But getting the fundamentals wrong, which leads to them becoming a bug in the end, that's just unacceptable. I mean, you know, we have terrible physics that lead to bugs and crashing, but not because the game is broken, although it is broken. But in that instance, it's not the game, it's the fact that the physics, a fundamental part of a racing game, is crap. So it's very important that Criterion Games takes the polish of the next game very seriously so that we're given a nicely done, a fully rounded racing game next year that's actually fun to play and won't constantly find ways to bullshit you and get you away from playing it. So full controller mapping at launch, full wheel support at launch, not broken multiplayer, a fully featured multiplayer system, improvements in car balancing, improvements in visuals and texture loading, and you know the whole code of the game working more properly, working better, giving the cars proper shadows, because I was told that the cars in the more recent Need for Speed games don't even have real shadows. Fixing the unbelievably lazy spin blur on the wheels, which has been there for years now. Incorporating a proper day and night cycle and a weather cycle at the same time without you being forced to switch between them because the developers were not able to incorporate them both properly. I'm sorry, it's not hardware limitations, it's the developers, okay? If it was hardware limitations, I would love for y'all to explain the dynamic seasons in Forza Horizon 4. So I've been rambling for almost 10 minutes now, and I seriously hope that I've gotten the point across that the next Need for Speed game needs to be, above anything else, polished, and it needs to ship at launch as a completed game. And I'm pretty sure I will get myself stuck in a loop where I will repeat this at the end of every one of these videos. The next Need for Speed game just needs to be good and ship as a completed game, and not with the promise of adding missing features in live service, but rather adding more features in live service that weren't there before to make the game even better, as opposed to making it from unfinished to finished and from bad to good. That's going to be about it for the polish on the next Need for Speed game. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel. Also, check me out on Twitter. The link will be in the description, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.